Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to today's lecture on neuromyths. This is also very important lecture because according to Goethe, nothing is more damaging to the truth than an old error. So there are several old errors that are present and they are in the form of different myths about the brain. And as he mentioned in my previous lecture, that the area of educational neuroscience is very new, especially the neuroscience is also new because a lot of new techniques being invented recently in the last 10-20 years. And so we are learning more about the brain. And even so, about the education is very recently studied area, and only there are still there are few universities in the world who are working in the area of educational neurosciences and performing the experiments and studies of the brain. Before this, there were several authors, scientists, journalists, and on the basis of their writings and so on, several myths were created, and mainly they were based on some of the experiments. They were misunderstood sometime and misrepresented some other time, and so on. So there were several myths, like in the 18th century and the 19th century, and uh, they were created and they were reported again and again. They were reported so much that people believe that they are the truth, but the neurosciences and the experiments in neurosciences have shown us that these are actually not the truth, these are not the facts. So these are old errors that we should understand, and we should debunk these myths so that we can have a very clear concept. And so in this lecture, I'm going to describe about some of the very common myths about neurosciences, and how we can, and what are the facts and what are and the true information that we can share with the people. So we are going to start with the first myth, and that is brain myth number one. You only use 10% of your brain, and this is the thing. Actually, still I started my education in my primary school, and then in the high school and college and university. This is the thing we have learned over the time, and this is the thing which is commonly reported, that we are using only 10% of our brain. So this is a common myth, and it started back in 18th century, at the end of 18th century, at the start of 19th century. And actually, this was about mainly about the human capacity, that how much capacity we have for some of the experiment and how much capacity we are using and we are putting. That is not related to brain actually, and people misrepresented this statement to the brain, that we only use 10% of our brain, and if you use fully brain, then we can do wonders. And so the fact is, we use virtually every part of the brain, and that most of the brain is active almost all the time, even when we sleep. So from this, you can have a clear idea that our brain is active, and most of the time, our all parts of brain, as we have learned in our previous lectures about the brain structure and function, and in also the neuroscience technique, that our different regions in the brain, they have different function. Like the frontal part is related to the planning and decision making and so on, and then there are parts which are related to our vision, and then they are related to our hearing, touch, taste, and everything. So they are located in different regions of the brain, and they are almost active all the time. So it's not true that we are using only the 10% of our brain. Brain damage or neurological disease are among the only instances where a person may not be using brain potential. So this is only during the neurological diseases or brain damage that we are not using the whole brain. If a normal healthy person is there, they are using the whole brain all the time. It's not true that we are using only the some of the potential of the brain. Then we are going to talk about the brain myth number two. Brain damage is always permanent. This is also a very common myth, and especially about the diseases. If somebody has a stroke or if somebody has some brain injury, then people think that this damage is permanent. Now the person has a damage in the brain, and he has lost his memory, or if he has lost his movement, for example, if he has lost his some of the other function, then now he will not be recovered. And I must say that brain is very plastic. organ. So there is a term that is used that is called neuroplasticity. Brain is very like neuroplastic. So we have the potential actually to do the rewiring in the brain. So I'm going to talk about this like the brain damage is permanent. That's not true. The truth is a typical mild and common type of brain injury usually result in only temporary disruption of brain function. So it's only damage in the brain function that is most of the time is temporary. Sometimes it happens that if like and there is stroke in the brain and a stroke in a way that the blood doesn't reach to certain area of the brain and there is a death of the neurons. Even still, if there is a death, then the other neurons, they move to their place and try to regain the function to some extent. So it's not true that there is a permanent loss of the brain function. Even after more serious brain injury, such as stroke, research indicates that the brain may be capable of developing new connections and reroute function through healthy areas. So this is a common thing that brain is very plastic. So if there is a damage in certain part of the brain, then the neurons moves to those areas. Even there is a research, and I was going through that research that even the stem cells from the bone marrow, they reach to the brain and they try to restore the function. And there was a very famous experiments in which there was a actually she was a lady and she has a stroke and she got a bone marrow transplant in her life. So after the bone, that was from a male person who and they matched the blood and then they did the transplantation of the bone marrow cells into the bone marrow. And ultimately, when they did the brain biopsy after her death, there were the cells in the brain, they were originally from the male person. So she received a bone marrow transplant, but she has the cells from the male. So you can imagine that even if there is a bone marrow transplant, then the cells from the bone marrow, they reach to the brain in the damaged area and try to repair it. So this is also a common myth that the brain is like very close, so the cells from the other part of the body they can't reach to the brain due to the blood-brain barrier. Is not true. The stem cell they can reach to the brain, and they can restore the function of the brain. Then there is another brain myth: brain decline as we get older. This is also very common, and older population they often complain, "Oh, we have got old, so we can't do this." And the brain function is he can't remember the things and he can't do the things. So this is a common sort of things that when you get older, your brain decline and the brain function they are decline. So the truth is, as some cognitive function decline, this is only due to actually the fact that when we get old, uh, there is a lesser supply of energy to the brain. There is less activation of mitochondria into the brain cells. So sometimes the function is to some extent in some of the life. There is a delay in the functions. You have seen there is a delay in response of the people. But this is not true that there is a decline in the function. As I'm going to read, as some cognitive function may decline because we are getting older, our hearing capacity, our VN capacity may be to some extent decline, but there is no decline or even improvement with increasing age. For example, vocabulary. If people may have more vocabulary when they are old, linguistic, comprehension, conflict resolution, and emotional regulation, general knowledge, and basic skills such as arithmetic that are acquired at young age are well retained into old age. So these are the things which are retained and sometimes they are improved with the passage of time. So it's not the fact that our brain function decline, even there is some improvement in the brain function as we get older. But to some extent, just like our other bodily function decline, for example, our muscle strength decline, our hearing, our vision decline. Similarly, there could be some decline in some of the function, but in other functions, the because like the older people, they are more wise, they have more better understanding of the things, they can comprehend the thing in a more better way. So there is increase in these functions, but in some of the function they are related to um, which are related to age, they could decline with the passage of time. And there is another brain myth we are going to study the brain myth number 4. Your memory is an exact account of what you see and experience. So this is also a myth that your memory is only what you have seen and what you have experienced. So the truth is, nobody's memory is perfect. When we are recalling a memory, when are actually recalling the last time that we remember it, rather than the original memory. So this is you should understand this. When we have a lot of our whole life is actually the memory. It's the only things that we have is the memories. So I have an incident, for example, back in my life when I was a teenager. I was at 14 years old. I had an accident, for example. Just if I remember that I was going to. I remember I was in my relative's village, and we went to bring bricks for a mosque from a nearby village. And then on the way back, when we were passing through the bridge, we had an accident. So if I have to remember that, then I remember that fact many times before. And so it is actually, it's the memory when I recall it last time. So whatever I have remembered last time is actually the memory that stays. It's not the original copy that stays. So this memory is not the perfect all the time that we have. So it's only when we recall it, then that is the final copy, that when we recall last time, and then we can go back to that copy of the information, and then we can recall it again, and so on and so on. So the memory is altered slightly when every successive time that is recalled. So there is so that's why if we try to remember the exact things, they are not, we can't remember it exactly what happened. So for example, if you met a person uh, 20 years ago and he was wearing a red shirt, or he had something in his hand, and if you try to recall it, you probably wouldn't be able to recall it exactly if you haven't focused on that. So it might be you will be confused with the passage of time that he might be wearing blue shirt rather red shirt. So there may be some alteration with the passage of time. So that's why if we recall it again and again, then that's actually become fixed in our mind. Then we are going to talk about another brain myth, number 5. Your IQ remains same throughout your life. This is also a common myth that your intelligence is fixed and it will remain the same throughout your life. So I'm going to tell you the truth. It has been long thought that IQ, or our intelligence, stays the same throughout our lives. Good news is this idea uh, has since been debunked by testing students as they grow older. A research was conducted among high school graders showed 9% of students tested showing changes of 15 points or more after 4 years. So from this, you can have an idea that it's not the fixed thing. So you can improve it. Your IQ can be improved, and you can have a better understanding of the things. If you focus on something, you can have a better understanding of the thing. So it's not the fixed thing. Your IQ is not the fixed. It's you can improve it with the passage of time. And then there is another brain myth that your brain works better under pressure. This is also very common things, and in our universities and in our offices, they put a lot of pressure on us, and things that if there will be pressure, then we will work better. And I'm going to tell you the truth that though the pressure of a deadline can motivate us to work harder, it doesn't result in better performance. So this is very important that we should remember that whenever we are in pressure, actually the pressure doesn't help us to focus more. So even if it declines, it results in lesser performance as compared to when we can do the things normally. So this pressure, these deadlines, this kind of things actually doesn't result in better performance. It is actually much more likely to impair function. So we should remember this, that the deadlines we are putting on the people, it can impair the function. It doesn't improve the function, and so we should try to work on the things on like in a normal way that we can perform in a better way as compared to we put a lot of pressure on the people that you should do it, you should perform it. Like if you are working in an office and then the boss came and he said that you have to complete this all these tasks in the next 2 days, and you have a lot of pressure to work. You can do more work when you have the deadline, but your performance will be certainly that will be decreased as compared to you can improve the performance. So this is this is another truth. And we are going to brain the number 7, and that is left brain people are organized, right brain people are creative. This is also very common myth among the people that either they often talk, especially in some of the people, some of the motivational speakers and other journalists, smart journalists, they try, okay, you seem to be a left brain person, you seem to be right brain person because you are a very creative person, so you must be right brain. So this is actually the truth. The truth is, though there are parts of the brain that are generally reserved for specific function, both sides are used together. You know, there are some, I talked during my previous lecture that there are two hemispheres, right and left hemisphere. And these are actually connected to each other through corpus callosum. This is, we have talked during our first lectures. So there are some areas of the brain in the right and left. They are some function they are reserved in the right side and some in the left side, but actually they are connected to each other through the corpus callosum. So they are equally, almost equally used. And so it's not the truth that you are the right brain person or you are the left brain person. Some area of the brain you might be using on the right side more because some functions are on the right side and some functions are more on the left side. So that could be true, but it's not entirely true that you are a totally right minded person or the left minded person. The claim that left-right orientation signifies creativity or organization have been disproved. So this have been disproved. Actually, some of the earlier experiments that have been done on some of the animals, in which actually they cut the connection between the right brain and the left brain, so there was no connection. The corpus callosum was lost, and then they performed the experiments. Actually, that's why there was some misunderstanding. But as he mentioned that the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, they are connected through the neurons and there is a lot of traffic, there is a lot of signaling that is going on in the two hemispheres and both are actually involved. So it's not exactly true that you are the right minded or the left minded person. And there is another brain myth that brain games improve your memory and reasoning skills. So this is also like it's a growing market now that these are the brain games and these are very important and you will be very smart after playing these games. So actually the truth is there is no solid evidence that commercial brain games improve general cognitive abilities. So they don't improve according to the experiments they have done so far. I'm going through these experiments. The study was conducted by asking 8,600 people aged 18 to 60 to play online brain game designed to improve memory and listening for 10 minutes a day, twice a week. The study showed that after 6 weeks, the test subject didn't do any better on memory reasoning test than comparable subjects. So this was disproved that some brain games they improve. There could be some improvement if you solve the problems. If you have to solve, if you play some games in which you solve the problem, they improve your ability to solve the problem. But most of the commercial games that are being projected as that they improve your cognitive abilities, that's not the truth. They don't improve your cognitive abilities. And there is brain myth number 9 that I'm going through this lecture. The bigger your brain, the smarter you are. This we also discussed in our previous lecture. This is now the truth. Some of the animals, as I mentioned previously, like the elephant, they have much larger brain than us. The dolphin, they have much bigger brain than us. And so that's not the truth. So the truth is, having a bigger brain doesn't guarantee more cognitive power. Although many believe humans are the smartest species on the planet, our brain which weigh roughly 3 pounds. So as I mentioned in previous in lectures, that our brain is like around 1.3 to 1.4 kg in weight, which weigh roughly 3 pounds, are dwarfed by other animals. For instance, the elephant brain weigh about 9 pounds. So that's like we are 3 pounds, and that is 9 pounds. So that is much larger than us. The whale brain can weigh up to the 20 pounds. So that is much larger. That we are 3, and that is 20. So you can compare 6, 7 times more in way as compared to, but we are the more smarter. Why we are so? Most scientists agree that we are all our unique capabilities in to the complexities of the cerebral cortex that is responsible for awareness, planning, and reasoning. Is 16 billion neurons. The human cerebral cortex has the most neurons of any in animal kingdom. So our the front portion that is involved in planning and reasoning and awareness and decision making. So this part is the larger, and we have around 16 billion neurons. As I mentioned in my previous lectures, that we have around 100 billion neurons. So you can imagine that 16 billion neurons are in this part. That actually give a unique characteristics to the human, that we have this part, and that is involved in planning and decision making. That's why we are the smartest species on the planet, and we are outperforming uh, as compared to even the elephant has larger brain, or the whale has a much larger brain than us, but they are not smart as compared to the human. We communicate in a better way, we plan in a better way, we execute the things in a much better way as compared to all other species. So that is a unique characteristics to the brain. As he even mentioned in my previous lecture, and that is also the fact that even the female brain is even more active as compared to the male brain, although that is smaller in size as compared to the male, but that could be more active. So it is actually how actively you are using brain, how much you have developed the connection. This is also one important thing I should mention during the lecture. Just like we exercise and develop our muscles, my muscles are not that strong. I don't do much exercise, but if you exercise, you can develop much muscles. You have seen the bodybuilders; they exercise a lot and they develop their muscles. So just like if you use your brain more, you also develop your brain just like you develop the muscle. So the connection, actually, the neural circuits in the brain, and they also develop, and you can perform the functions very good. I must say, I must share another example that will prove this, that there is a theory of 10 hours and 10,000 hours rule, and I'm going to share that. And according to that 10 hours rule, you can learn anything in 10 hours. For example, if you have to learn how to drive a car, you can learn it in 10 hours. 10 hours mean that you can independently, you can perform the drive after 10 hours of the practice of driving the car. And 10,000 hours rules that if you perform the things for the same thing, like if you are learning to drive for the like 10,000 hours, you will be the best person in the world, because you have got your neural circuits in a way they are much more profound, they are much more efficient, they perform the signaling in a very smart way that you can outperform. It is just like if you want to be a good speaker, if you practice it for 10 hours, you could be a public speaker. But if you improve yourself gradually, you again and again, you do the public speaking for the 10,000 hours, then you will be one of the best speakers in the world. So this is the practice, and the practice, if we do a lot of practice, then it actually helps to rewire our brain. The circuits are developed in a way that just like we do the circuitry is initially we have to learn the driving, then we have to put the gear 1, 2, 3. But afterwards, our brain circuits are developed in a way that even you are talking, even you are unconsciously, you are driving on the road, and ultimately, if you have to go fast, you go in gear number 4 or 5 automatically, even without thinking. So this is how your actually brain develops with the passage of time. And then the last brain myth that we are going to discuss in our lecture, that is number 10, the brain is hardwired. This is also not true, that our brain is not hardwired, that it will go You can't improve your functions, you can't improve your capabilities. It is hard once it was developed, it will remain the same. That's not the truth. The truth is, myth is that the specific areas are responsible for a specific function. In fact, brain is remarkably flexible. So our brain is very flexible. And a good example of this is that the brain of a blind person can rewire part of their brain responsible for sight to improve their hearing. So if somebody is blind, then this is actually true. That if somebody is blind, they have more hearing capabilities because they rewire their brain. So our brain is like, as he mentioned in my previous in slide, that we can rewire the brain, we can improve it with the passage of time. If we practice more, we can improve it more, and it's very flexible. We can actually improve the function of some areas of the brain with the practice. You can, if you like can't manage your time in a good way, you can manage it in a good way. If you don't have interest in mathematics, for example, you think that, oh, I'm not good in mathematics, you can be good in mathematics. You can actually develop your interest, you can focus on that, and you can ultimately be good in mathematics. So we are not very hardwired that you are thinking that I can't do it because I don't have interest in it, I can't perform it, I can't do these experiments and so on. This is not the truth. We can actually rewire our brain. We can develop our interest, and we can outperform in those things. So it's like very flexible. That's why the persons working in the universities and schools and colleges, especially the educators and those who are working in corporate organizations, they should actually have some training in area of neurosciences, so they can better learn that how can they rewire their brain and how can they utilize their brain in a best way. So with this, these are some of the references that we have used to make this slide. I have want to mention in the very first slide that these are the slide actually for this lectures and maybe for the coming lecture. They are designed by Hira Rafi. She was one of the colleagues who worked with me in area of education and neurosciences, and she prepared the slides and helped me to prepare these presentations. So I'm also very much thankful to her. But these are some of the references that we have used to prepare these slides. With this, thank you very much for your careful listening. I'm sure you will also have many neuromyths in your mind before going through this lecture. I was also this is also in my mind that our brain damage is fixed. We are using only part of the brain. Um, we may be the right, I might be the right-minded person or the left-minded person, and so on. So there were so many things that were also in my mind that I may be uh, using some of part of my brain and so on. So these are common myths, and we should debunk these myths if we have to move forward. And with this background of knowing the brain structure and function and the techniques in neurosciences and these neuromyths, afterwards we are going towards our main lectures of education and neurosciences, in which we will describe how we are actually how the learning happens in the brain and so on. And they will be very much interesting for you to learn about the neurosciences, and this is how we will apply the neurosciences in the area of education and how we can improve the education. But to have the foundation is also very important. That's why I started with the brain structure and function, and then we had gone through the techniques in which we study the brain, and today we are talking about the neuromyths, and then you will have very good concepts about the brain and how it functions. And now we will, in the coming two lectures, we will discuss in detail about the brain, about the neurosciences and education. So if you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask. My email address is given, or you can ask a question on the WhatsApp group that we have created for this course. And with this, thank you very much again for your listening, and hope to see you soon for the upcoming lectures.